On Easter night, I escaped the fire with my unconscious sister in my arms, covered in blood. Behind me were the twisted bodies of my family in the fire. Although Mom killed the people, it was us who started the fire. My name is Anna and I'm 15 years old. My younger sister's name is Anna and she's 10 years old. And we live with my younger brother, my mom, and my dad. But our dad is not our real dad. Easter was great. Everyone was busy cooking eggs. And eggs were the best thing my sister and I had ever eaten. The first time we ate eggs was on the day my brother was born. My younger sister and I were allowed to eat half of it each. It was delicious. Looking at my sister's unsatisfied look, I mustered up my courage and said to my mom, "Can I give Anna another egg?" What greeted us was not Mom's smile, but Dad's slap. I was slapped and fell to the ground. My sister was so scared that she jumped up from the bench and ran to me, crying, "No, I don't want it. Anna doesn't think the eggs are good." And our mom, watching all this, didn't stop it. Only her eyes revealed a deep disgust for us. From then on, Anna never ate eggs again. Looking at eggs but only biting her lips and gently rubbing the shell with her little fingers one after another, which became Anna's aftermath. Our family was reorganized. My sister and I were the children of my mother's ex-husband, but natural father abandoned us, and my younger brother was born to my mother and father. So my father especially disliked us, and my mother used to help us occasionally, but since my younger brother was born, we had a harder time. But as my brother grew up, we were beaten less and less, and basically, we had enough to eat, and probably because of my brother, my father didn't treat us too harshly. Until my younger brother went to school and stayed away at night. Our food became simpler and simpler, just bread and water. On Easter Day, Mom and Dad were going to take us sisters to a forest more than 10 kilometers away for a vacation. We were all very happy because it was the first vacation in our lives. My younger brother, who loved to play, also secretly hid in the car and followed us, and that very night, Mom suddenly went crazy as if she was holding a stick and killed my younger brother, wounded Dad, and wanted to continue to come to kill me and my younger sister. Anna, in an attempt to protect me, was pushed to the ground by my mom and her head was hit and passed out. I gathered the courage to fight with my mother. My mother accidentally knocked over the stove fire, and the whole house burned. My father suddenly rushed down from upstairs and fought to get up to hold my mother, but both of them were still hit by the burning beams. Because the fire was too big, I was very scared, and I was all bloodied and escaped holding my sister who was in a coma. The above is the whole story I told the police, but only I know how bloody and brutal that night was. Easter was great. Ironically, I was orphaned on Easter, but at the same time, I realized that I had broken with the past, and in a sense, I was resurrected once again. Afterward, I thought that the police would find out something because the case was so publicized, and then it was so quiet. 10 years later, a very frail man appeared in front of me. This man with a pair of glasses and a very gentlemanly look. His face was very bad, but his eyes were very good. He came up to me and told me his name was Henry, and that he was visiting today to ask about the case of that year. "Annie, I'm very sorry to bother you. I would like to inquire about the forest bloodshed back then, and I was hoping you could assist me." I was stunned, and then I said to him as if nothing had happened, "Are you a police officer? If not, I'm sorry, I'm not obligated. I think you should assist me." He slowly unbuttoned his shirt, revealing a long scar inside where his heart was. I had a heart transplant. Technically, it was that the forest bloodshed that kept me alive. I was in the same ward as your brother, lined up behind your brother. Your brother was supposed to have the surgery, then he had an accident and I survived. I want to know the truth now. I don't have much time left. I don't want to go to the grave with regrets. Seeing those eyes of his, I somehow felt a little trembling. The memory of that night came back to me once again. My mom went crazy that night. Henry suddenly interrupted me and said with a smile, "It's not easy to find an orphan. I went through a lot of trouble to find you. Please tell me the truth. If I tell you that there was an eyewitness back then, can you tell me the truth?" My heart suddenly shrank. It can't be. What happened back then? It's been so long. He must be swindling me. Oh, then call him over. I'll wait for him. Really? How did your younger brother get that far into the forest when he was in the hospital? I'm not a policeman, just a Yale professor, and I'm not here to investigate the case, just because I want to find out the real reason why I was rescued that year. And with my reputation, I'm perfectly capable of rallying renewed attention to the case, don't you think? My hand trembled a little. Looking at his serious face, I cleared my throat. The story is a bit long. It's okay. It's still early. Would you mind if I have a cigarette? Watching him elegantly light up a cigarette, my thoughts were pulled into years ago. My younger sister and I are 5 years apart, and when my sister was 1 month old, she almost died because her natural father cheated, leaving her mom and us behind. My mom was emotionally unstable when she was breastfeeding at the time. She used to cut herself with razor blades and also relied on drugs to numb herself. Mentally, she was in a bit of a trance. She would hit me when she was slightly upset, and my 1-month-old sister was often pinched and cried by her, and even worse, once she threw my sister into a bucket as if she were garbage. But luckily, I heard the cries, and I was able to run to the neighbors and knocked on the door and saved my sister. Then Mom met my current dad and things got a little better. At least she didn't beat us randomly, but we still didn't have enough food to eat. And it wasn't until my brother was born that things got completely better for us, because my brother was always so cute and often took the food that he didn't like or left over and brought it to us. And also when Mom and Dad beat us up, he always stopped in front of us, and I was fond of him. But still, my brother grew up and Dad decided to let him go to school. Strangely enough, Dad never considered if my sister and I needed to go to school. Since my younger brother went to school, for some reason we moved to a more remote place, so my brother lived at school and only came back once in a long time. And every time he came back, it was like a holiday at home with lots of good food. Then my brother got sick and needed a new heart, which required a large sum of money, and things got harder and harder for the family. Dad used to beat my mom a lot, but no longer beat my sister and me. Later on, my mom sometimes glared at my sister and me for a long time, not knowing what to think about. Even sometimes she would stand still at the end of my bed for a long time, just looking at me, watching me, until I wake up. Just like that, when it came to Easter, Dad proposed to go out to a faraway forest for a vacation break, and Mom seemed to be a lot happier and bought a lot of good food and drinks. But that night, Mom actually went crazy, first hitting her brother in the head with a stick, then letting out a loud cry, and then wrestling with Dad, who was hit in the head by Mom, but Mom was also pushed down from the stairs by Dad. My sister and I heard the noise and rushed out. When Mom saw us, she stood up, picked up the knife on the table, and came towards us. I was so scared that I pulled my sister to run. In the panic, my sister, to protect me, was knocked to the ground by Mom. Head knocked on the table, unconscious. To save my sister, gathered the courage to pick up a chair and threw it at Mom, and then began to grab Mom's knife. I was stabbed by Mom in many places during the struggle. At this time, my father also rushed down and continued to wrestle with my mother. The fight knocked over the stove fire, and the house burned. I rushed to carry my sister to the outside of the house, but my mother still wanted to kill me, but was held by my father. At this time, due to the fire was very fierce, the beam fell and hit my father and mother. My sister and I escaped. My sister was determined to be brain dead in the hospital, and I was her last relative. I could not bear the thought of her continuing to suffer, so I euthanized her and donated her heart as she had wanted to do before she was born.